Hello and welcome back to NJ Wedding Pro podcast. My name is Tim at Wedding Photo NJ, and today I don't have a wedding professional with me, but I do have somebody even more special. So we're going to introduce my wife on our lovely 6-year anniversary, Christine. Welcome, Christine, to the NJ Wedding Pro podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so I thought this would be like just a fun way to document just kind of where we're at 6 years after the wedding, but also just give people a way to, if you're planning a wedding right now and you're like looking for tips and just a bit of advice, recalling back to all the planning and everything. And obviously what we went through was a little bit different.
Yeah.
A lot different than what most people are going to have to deal with. And we'll definitely get into all of that. But yeah, even just to give your insight. So why don't you just introduce yourself first, and then we could start talking about how the past 6 years have been now that we are 6 years into being married.
Okay. Dr. Christine Anderson. What else do you want to know about me? What do the people want to know? A senior assistant director at Rutgers University in the Office of Career Exploration and Success. I've been working in education for a very long time now. I took some time off from working when I was pregnant and we had Lily. And you were starting this, I guess, around that time too. And what else about me? What else would the people want to know?
I mean, I think that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah, that's
wasn't
me.
expecting another dissertation or anything. But yeah, I think it's also too, it's nice because we're a little bit more private when it comes to like our personal life, and there's not a lot that I usually share outside of like, you know, work and things like that. And so I feel like even just giving people a little bit of like an idea of like who you are and, you know, our relationship, I feel like just helps people to.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, 6 years in, what's that been like?
Fantastic. Flew by.
No, no difficult times at all. Nothing.
No, smooth sailing.
The entire time, yeah. We've never had any. No, it's actually, that was one of the things that I eventually wanted to get into, was like, just, it's not even that you run into any type of like difficult situations or anything like that necessarily, but more specifically, just how your life changes, like how much your life changes, not necessarily right after the wedding, but more, just, you know, as your family's growing and as your careers are evolving and like things like that, you know, maybe before you get married and you have like some kind of idea of what life is supposed to look like. And a lot of times I feel like it doesn't always turn out exactly how you imagine. Some things I feel like did turn out exactly how you imagined, but I think the one thing is like we probably didn't anticipate of like how much we would change and how much like our lives and, you know, just in general, like your priorities would change. More specifically, like once you have a kid and once like, you know, you really start growing a family and planning for that. But yeah, so that's one of those things that I feel like when you're planning a wedding, like there's no way to know like what the next 5-6 years is even going to look like. And it feels like 5-6 years is not, it's like not that long. It's not, you know, 40 years married and we're like old people. And so it feels like, oh, 5 years or 6 years, that's not, you know, anything too crazy. But a lot can change in 6 years. So what has changed in the past 6 years?
I think the biggest change was definitely like having a kid, like having a baby, having a child, a toddler now. Because we lived together before we got married. So we got married 2020, May 15th, 2020. So it was the very beginning of the pandemic. And I feel like a lot of relationships really struggled during the pandemic because people just weren't used to spending so much time with each other. And I think we saw our partners in very different like lights and ways than we had before. It also was a very traumatic experience for everybody who had to go through that. Whether people want to acknowledge that or not, that's fine. But I will acknowledge that it was a very, not normal thing that we all had to experience collectively. But so that's when we got married. So
challenges involved in, and I, from like just a perspective of like seeing, couples reach out and always, it's very interesting because I dealt with it on both sides, like as a part of a couple planning their wedding and having to deal with this 2 months before everything. Before our wedding was supposed to happen, everything shut down, which is like you're scrambling and trying to figure out, okay, they're saying it's only going to be a few weeks. And, so, and then it turned out obviously not to be that, but I would always like, and then as a wedding photographer and you're also trying to help out all your couples as much as you can. But I would always ask anybody that reached out, like, just their story and like, how'd you meet and all that fun stuff. And what I found is like I feel like that era really either it accelerated relationships one way or the other. So I almost feel like if it wasn't really going to work out, it's almost like you spent so much time together that you found out sooner. But if it was going to work out, like there were so many couples that they met around the time of the pandemic or right before it, and because they had a chance to spend so much time together, it really helped their relationships. So that's like a really interesting perspective. But either way, it really, it changed a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think just going through that and being in a relationship was like to me was a positive experience, obviously. And I think it just solidified the direction we were going in and being married. So we ended up totally changing our plans. So we were supposed to get married in a venue and we were supposed to have like 100 and something guests. And then like you mentioned it was like, oh, it's only gonna be a couple of weeks and we'll be back to, the lockdowns and all of that. And then that, we just were like, we're not gonna wait. So like our venue said, oh, if you want to just rebook for next year, like that is a possibility. We could just move your date essentially. And we kind of were like, no, we're not waiting. And I think it was a very like empowering, bold thing because most people were like, we're just going to wait. Yeah. But the way we looked at it, like, speaking for myself, but I think you agree that like we wanted to get married for us, not for other people. And so we were like, listen, let's do this now and in a way that makes sense that we can given the restrictions, and then we'll just do a reception when things are normal. Yeah. And so, that definitely was not the direction most people went in at that time. Most people decided to wait. We also were just lucky that we were at the very beginning and our venue was willing to cancel and give us our money back, which was not the case for a lot of people either. So I feel kind of lucky that despite it being early in that time with the things shutting down, we kind of got the better end of the stick where our venue was very willing to be like, yeah.
I think it was so early on that we were probably one of the first people to really like even ask or request like, hey, what happens in this scenario where you guys don't actually open on time? Yeah. And ultimately they were like, well, I guess we would have to like refund you. Yeah. And it really was because like the dates that they were giving as on alternatives or whatever it was, like
it was fall.
We were, but it was like, these are just random dates that don't really mean anything to us. Like they're just kind of like the dates that they had open. And that felt very, I don't know, like just not what we planned, which is like maybe okay for some people. They're like, we just want to have it. But for us, I feel like it was more, we, you know, first of all, we didn't want to just do nothing on that day.
Yeah.
And we ended up actually, you know, because of everything going on, like the honeymoon that we had planned, we ended up like just we're at home and sitting and we're like, oh, we would be in, you know, wherever,
Mexico,
Cancun or something right now. That's okay. But
And we put like a thing on the TV, like an island.
yeah, we tried to make it, but I think that is really what ended up happening was we made the best of it, and it's so interesting to have that perspective, and then, you know, work with some of these clients that are really like, you know, maybe stressed about what their day is going to look like. They're stressed about the weather, and our stress was just so different from what you know most people's you know, what comes up as like their, you know, their main concern or their major concerns, which obviously like I would much rather stress about, you know, the weather, or you know, oh, is like this small detail going to go right, then is our wedding even going to happen at all? So what did we end up doing?
We rented an Airbnb in Jersey City that had like a little courtyard. And I was a rule follower, so we were only allowed to have 10 people at the time. Like it was like that was the biggest number of gathering you can have. And we had 10 people.
And it was like a really nice like brownstone.
Yes, very nice, beautiful.
It was like
very nice, beautiful.
it was like really big too, like big enough that everybody had their own room, and oh my gosh, I feel bad about like even thinking back and being like, hey, like we want to invite you, but can you not invite your spouse or your partner? And that was like a whole thing.
Yeah, I was so worried that like the police were going to come if we had more people. I was like, and that's what I mean by what before when I was like, it was a very traumatic event. Like you were told not to do these things, and you know, you were putting other people's lives at risk if you did. And you know, it was very, very, very stressful.
I remember like even this is like in Jersey City too, like where we had it. And I remember like just seeing where, you know, police or whatever were coming around, and they were kind of like shutting down elopements that were happening at parks because they didn't want people to like get too close to each other. It's so I feel like maybe a lot of people have suppressed those memories,
like,
but it really is just such a crazy thing that that we all experience. And I'm glad that like that's not anything, you know, we're not dealing with that anymore as it is, but yeah, to navigate that like at the time really was kind of crazy. And just as like a, you know, question that came up in my head, because we watched our wedding film today. We were lucky enough to like that 10 people included everybody that we could invite, a photographer, a videographer, and our officiant, who was like you know, a friend of ours. But it was just like there was no more than 8 or 9 people, I think, at a time. But when you watch the video, and that was the first time that I think Lily has seen our wedding film too.
I think this is the first she probably would like really be able to like, react to it. We definitely showed her last year, but she's 3 now, and so she has a bigger vocabulary than she did. So
she's like, is that you? We're like, yeah. So watching our wedding film, like, is none of those things are the first things that you think of, really?
No, I loved the day. To me, it was so much more of what I actually wanted. And we had talked about this. Like, I didn't want a big thing. I'm just not. That's just not me. I know there are women who just dream about their wedding day and being this, or maybe even some men, or you know, other people. But you know, they dream about this grand thing, and it just was never who I was. Like, I preferred the more small, intimate I don't like attention. So
Yeah.
like, I just didn't want anything, so it ended up being like, to me, like I was like, oh, this is kind of more my speed, more my style. And I remember coming home from Jersey City and like just crying. And you were like, what's wrong? And I was just like, I'm just so happy. And like, that's really how I felt, was like, there was so much relief behind it being done and us actually doing it and being able to do it and do it in a way that was so us. And like, I was just like, I can't even believe that, like, that all just happened.
Yeah.
But no, watching the video, I don't think like, oh, it was COVID and it was scary. And no, like, I'm like, this is so nice. It was, it's a great spot to be in. My dad had grown up in Jersey City, or was born there at least. And so, maybe didn't grow up there, but he was born there. And it was a beautiful day. I mean, it was hot. It was definitely very hot and it ended up raining.
When it comes to the weather, we were concerned that it might
Oh my
rain.
God, it was so hot.
And it ended up like, you're talking about mid-May, and it was like 90 degrees, and I had a like velvet suede like
I had long sleeve
jacket on, and
I
walked all around Jersey City with that. I didn't even care.
But it was still so
everything was
watching the
perfect,
video though, I didn't think that it was hot. I was like, oh, it was like not raining. It was,
Yeah,
we could
you
do
don't-
stuff outside. We were able to like walk around, take our pictures. We walked down to the waterfront. We got really nice pictures in front of, like, with the New York City back, skyline behind us. Like, so it was just like, very picturesque, and like, it just really was. And like, if we would have done it at a venue in, what was that? Ocean Township, like, you would have just had the grounds, which was, we didn't pick a huge place. So we had a lot more to work with when it came to like doing our pictures and stuff, which was,
it was definitely it was unique, which was one of the things that I think was important to both of us. Like, we wanted something that, I mean, at that point I had done hundreds of weddings, and I just wanted something that felt more like, this is not like any other wedding that I have done before. I think that was one of the things that came to mind. And the other thing that I thought of as you were talking was, like, when I think back to that day, it feels like it was just stripped down to the absolute essentials. Like, it wasn't anything more than what you would have needed. And this was really just like, it was the wedding day, and later on we had the reception once everything opened back up. But even just for the wedding day itself, like, we had just a place that we could get together. We had obviously the two of us, like an officiant, a few people that we are like some of the closest people to us, and just a way to document that. And it's like, when you really think about that, like a wedding in general, like, you don't really need anything much more than just what I mentioned. A lot of the other stuff ends up kind of like, it's nice to have, but when you talk about like getting married, those are really like the most essential things that you could have.
yeah.
And we have all of them, so it didn't feel like, oh, we missed out on, or like, there was something that was supposed to be there that wasn't there.
No, it was nice because like we did the ceremony and stuff in 2020, and then it was like 2 years later we did the reception. And again, it was just something like so much more our style. We did a brunch, which we loved brunch. I mean, we still do. We just don't do it as often anymore, but we loved like brunch time. It just gave a good variety of food. The venue we picked for that was just awesome. Whitechapel Projects in Long Branch. They were fantastic. They literally were like, whatever you want to do, we can do it. And they meant it. And it was inside, outside. So like still, it was still kind of like people, if they needed to be outside, we could be outside. And it was just so much less pressure. We really were there to like just celebrate versus like, so getting there and stuff for that day didn't feel like a lot was riding on, I don't know, or like however you might feel as a bride or a groom getting married. It's like, wow, this day is so heavy because, you know, it's like very performative. You have to be in front of people versus like, I'm going to go and just, we literally just like showed up.
Yeah.
And like some people were there already and then people kind of came and went. And like, it was just like, you're just walking around saying hi and everybody just wants to like give you a hug and whatever. And it's just, you don't have to, I don't know.
So at that point,
do the hard part.
yeah. So at that point, we were married for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the one piece that we were missing, just the opportunity for us to like celebrate with more people, but also for people to celebrate with us, which they really wanted to do, and everybody's like excited, and there were so many people that we wanted to invite, and but ultimately ending up having it at Whitechapel Projects, like kind of like we mentioned, it was a lot more of like, oh, this is really like what we always imagined that it could be, and it's so personal to your style and what you want to do. Like you said, you know, just even asking Amanda like, hey, we want to do like a brunch style thing. Is that something that you guys do? And she's like, yeah, sure. Like we can kind of like, you know, give you some menu options and everybody, I'm telling you,
raved.
Like everybody loved it. And it wasn't, we didn't do like, oh, we're doing the ceremony all over again. We could have, like she offered, but we were like, we're already married. So we really just kind of wanted a chance to celebrate with everybody.
Yeah.
And it was a lot more casual and laid back because it had, you know, it already been 2 years.
Yeah.
But it was just as nice. Gave you an opportunity to finally wear the dress that you got, which was like, I feel like one of the main reasons why we're like, we can't not do anything now, because like there was so much that we hadn't done that we originally planned.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the wedding. So I don't know. We started this conversation with what has changed.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, like what's interesting is I feel like, you know, the wedding industry is always changing. But I feel like, you know, I don't know, I'm not going to say we were like trendsetters or anything, but it's like, I think a lot more people are doing the type of celebration that we did, in that, you know, you're still having people that want the grand ballrooms and the very extravagant, you know, celebrations and stuff like that. But I think there's more and more people that are opting for, you know, the more of the essentials, like, you know, whether that's an elopement or just a more intimate style of wedding. And I think even just personalizing it more the way that we did, and that like, this fits our personality. This feels very much like us.
Yeah.
And I think that is just like a really nice thing, you know, that people are coming around to, and not necessarily, hopefully feeling the pressure of like, oh, I have to do it this way because this is kind of how everybody else does it. But,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what changed after the wedding? After like the our initial like ceremony, because I feel like this is one of those things that I feel like couples don't really like think about. It's you're focused so much on like planning the wedding and leading up to the wedding, and then you have the wedding, and then I feel like a couple of things happen. I think first of all, you realize like, oh, nothing really like fundamentally changed.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Nothing really.
Yeah, that's just kind of what I was getting at. Nothing, you know, cosmic really changes after you haven't, which is like, you know, really.
I mean, I changed my name. That's probably like, and I had to go through, and that was weird because everything was just so weird because of COVID. But also that's what I was trying to get at in the beginning when I started off, you know, saying we already lived together. So it wasn't like we didn't live together and now we were moving in together. Like I feel like, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that would have been a big transition if we hadn't lived together. But we had already at that point for a few years, and so so fundamentally we went home.
But I think I also think like that's the case for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of couples live together, you know, before they actually officially get married. So I feel like that is just one of those things that, if you're expecting like after the wedding, like just something crazy to shift, if anything, it just feels like, you're, yeah, the one thing you might have to get used to is like calling each other, husband and wife,
Yeah.
as opposed to like your fiance
Yeah.
when you are referring to them. But also, the post wedding blues is one of those things that I remember Brendan and Nicole after their wedding, and they talked about like, they're just like, oh, like
It's over.
it's over. Yeah, we planned everything, and we celebrated, and you're like at the top of the mountain, and it's everybody's just like so excited for you.
Euphoric, yeah.
Yeah, and then like the next day you go into like, oh,
That's why I
it's
cried.
just the it's just like the next day. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to say, I feel like considering that and making the following day like something, plan, not anything stressful, not anything that feels like, oh, you have to like do a whole lot to, but I think planning something to just like make it feel like almost like somewhat of a continuation of the wedding. And for like John and Lauren, I love that they like the morning after they
Yeah,
had
that was nice.
like a little brunch get together with
Yeah.
everybody, or morning breakfast, and like that was just like a really nice thing to like get to talk to them about the wedding, because sometimes you're you don't get to see the couple as often during the night. You're just kind of in
Yeah.
passing, and you get a chance to talk to them. So I think that's like a really nice way to to be able to do something after the wedding. Not every couple just goes right on a honeymoon following the wedding.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not such a bad thing.
No,
if
my
you're
gosh.
leaving like right away, that was like an old
That was
tradition.
Mia. That's what Mia and Sean did.
Yeah.
They left like the next
There's some people,
morning.
the old tradition was like,
I'm like, oh my God.
you get in a car like before the reception even ends, and you're on your way like to the airport or whatever. That's such an old tradition. But yeah, nowadays I think it's usually like the week following, or a few days following. And I think that's worth to give yourself some time.
Yeah. We were supposed to be like the next week or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely not right away, or at least a couple days later.
Yeah. So after the reception part, which was like, that was in 2022. And I think that's usually what we refer to it as. Like, after that reception, we did go away, and it was like just a nice little cabin that we rented.
That was nice.
It was really nice and quiet, and very different from like, there was a more official honeymoon that we took for, this was whenever I think everything opened up.
I think that was the year before, right? Was it in 2021 we did that?
It must have been.
Yeah.
And that was nice, but they're so different, because one was like, we're on an all-inclusive resort, and it's like, there's, obviously like very nice things about that.
It also was still, things were still very restricted, like at the place. So like, it was nice. It was nice to be away. It was nice to be in a tropical island. It's nice to be an all-inclusive where you're just like, whatever you need, you have, but you couldn't even go up to the bar still. Like they had to come to you. So it was still like, yeah, but the cabin was just like in PA, in just like very secluded. It was right across from like a hiking trail.
Yeah.
The town was like very small, very quiet. It was an A-frame.
Yeah, like a really nice place, and
Very
it
nice.
had had like a hot tub, so it was like just very secluded and relaxing. And like I don't know if that's something that a lot of couples consider for like a honeymoon, but to me that's such a nice way to
Come down
after
from.
after like all the craziness, and like it's something to still look forward to, but it's relaxing. I remember when we were originally planning, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm gonna want to go maybe for a honeymoon, like let's go backpacking in Europe. And I'm like, you just planned a whole wedding, and probably
I still never went on that backpacking trip though. So.
eventually. But I was like, you probably just want to like hang out on the beach, and so that was a lot closer to like, what I imagine is a little bit more relaxing, and also too, it was like, it was a lot of stuff that little things that we planned, but even things like I just remember opening our cards there, like we just took everything with us, and then kind of sitting down together and kind of opening up all like the nice things that everybody, wrote to us, and like all that stuff is
So
like
yeah, you're saying the cards that we got at the reception.
correct.
So we took all of those.
Or
with
or
us.
like wedding cards or wedding
Just
gifts.
to clarify, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if that wasn't clear. So yeah, it was like that
And
was
we read
just
them,
even
yeah.
a nice way to.
We just like sat, and there was like a fireplace, even though it was like hot. We there was like a really nice fireplace, and yeah, we sat and we just like read them out loud and went through everything, and yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. So all that's to say,
That's
well,
a total rundown of our wedding.
I know, really, but all that to say is like, even in some of the most like crazy, unpredictable times, like things can still turn out really nice, like way nicer than you imagine. And if you're stressing about your wedding and the smaller details and things like that, just know that like, even in something like a pandemic,
Yeah.
everything can somehow still feel like when you look back on it, that was perfect, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything about it. And so hopefully, that's just a nice piece of reassurance for couples that are stressed about.
Yeah, I think your day's gonna go the way it's gonna go, and your attitude about it will help that. Because I think no matter what, it's stressful. Because like I mentioned, it's very performative. You have to, there's a certain way you want things to be done in your mind, and then you're also going to be with a lot of people probably, unless you're like eloping. But even then, it's like you're committing yourself to somebody else in front of somebody else, right? And so, but I think what made the whole process easier was that you are such a problem solver, and like I kind of was like, we kind of both were just like, well, we don't want to wait. We still want to do it on this date. Like you mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, that like the date was just like, that was the date we picked. We just felt really right about that date. And, you spent so much time, on Airbnb and looking things up.
Oh my gosh, we thought about like
we thought about going to a different state.
Like a national park, yeah.
We thought about like literally leaving New Jersey, going to a different state, but then restrictions were changing. Because at first it was like just like more Western states didn't really have any restrictions yet.
Yeah.
And it just like.
And that was the thing that we were like, oh, well, we'll be safe if we're just like outside and, we're just like at a park as long as we can, get there. And
then we didn't know if we did that, if we planned that. And then it was the flying. We're like, oh, we'll drive. We went through so many things.
Yeah.
But you kind of never wavered with, I'm going to figure it out, or like, we're going to figure out where we can do it. And so, like, I think that's, that was definitely very helpful. And I think like, even as a wedding photographer, videographer, like when you're in that environment, and it is can be a very chaotic day for couples, or just, you're somebody who's very mellow, which is helpful for somebody who I can say as somebody who tends to be pretty stressed about most average day things. So like a wedding was even more stressful. Like you're very level-headed and calm, and like can just focus on, okay, if this is an issue or this is something that is a little challenge we have to get over right now, like, okay, like we'll get over it. And I feel like that is why I will shameless plug you as, a wedding photographer, videographer for couples, is that you are really helpful. And just, so aside from being like calm and mellow, and that's definitely somebody who you want for your day, like if something is like, you mentioned the weather or whatever, like you're like, okay, well, we can't do it here. We can't take this picture here. Let's okay, let me scope out the inside and see what we can do with what we got. I mean, you've been to most venues in New Jersey now that you kind of already know what those spots are, but I think you want your vendors to be those people. It was the same thing with like Amanda at Whitechapel Projects, where it was just like, this is what we want to do, and she was like, yeah, we can do that, versus like we had talked to another place that they kept telling us they could do these things, and it kind of became apparent that they couldn't. And so, you just want to be able to work with people who you trust, and like that, that if there's a hiccup or a hurdle, that person's going to help you get through it that day. So that's definitely advice I have. I don't know if we're giving advice, but I just was thinking about how really the whole reason we were able to even get married was because you were level-headed enough and determined enough to find a place for us to do it.
Also like resourceful, because it really was like, okay, we can't do that. All right, let's try this. Oh, can't do that either. And like, literally having like a not just a plan B, but a plan
C, D, E, F, G. Like
it's really,
we were
and
really far
sometimes
down
it
that
comes
list.
down to that. And it's just like all the while not letting it get you down and being like, oh, well, I guess that's it, and giving up, and just finding a way. And I think that was really the ultimate, like, show of, what love is, and like what a marriage can be, and what a wedding can be. And it's like really just with all the odds stacked against you, just finding a way to do it anyway. And so I think that's so, important as a takeaway. And now 6 years later, what is life like?
Very different because we have a child. Like I think I would never change having a child. I absolutely love our daughter.
Definitely do all the things that you want to do before you have
yes. I think the thing is like,
these are the things that I feel like, if you're watching, you're planning a wedding right now, and these are things that you're like, they're far enough in the future that you're thinking about, like, oh, right after we have a wedding, and like this is something we want, is to grow the family. But you don't necessarily like really like understand, comprehend like what that means or what that looks like. And so this is like just
I think
painting a picture of like what 6 years later after getting married, what it can look like.
Yeah, so we had Lily, we had our daughter 3 years later. She was born in August of 2023. Oh my God, April. I had the A on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I mean, knew what you meant.
Yeah. Well,
she just turned 3.
And I think that was a good, I mean, a lot of things factored into when we waited and, how long we wanted to. And I think every couple, you have your own timelines and stuff too, if you even choose to have children. But I think had we not had Lily, I think life would have been not boring, but it just would have been so much of the same. Like it was kind of like
both been more like career focused,
so
and
much
we would have
like,
locked into. Probably would have traveled a lot more and did fun things, but no, but that's why I say, like, just do all the things that you want to do before you have a kid, because that becomes your priority.
For
like
sure.
It's just
that. So we we got married. We were at the time living in a townhouse, and then we knew we wanted to move to a single family house. So we did that. So that changed too, and Lily wasn't around yet then. So we moved to a single family home. We did a bunch of renovations there. Like the house itself was like move-in ready, but then we put in a pool, we redid the roof, we did some landscaping stuff, and then we kind of just felt like, okay, now's we're ready for the next chapter, I guess, or the next book, I guess it would be, the family book, and so. I think we did try to do that. I wanted to do my doctorate and finish it before I had any children. And I knew that beforehand because I knew at the least I knew a child would take up a lot of time. And for me, there are people who do both. Okay. Shout out to all those
for sure,
who do their doctorate or any further education or any big, project, whether that's a new business or whatever, when they have a kid, my hats are always off to you. I knew personally I couldn't handle it. Like I knew it would be way too much for me. And so, I did that big thing that was a selfish thing that I wanted to do for me.
It was just a goal that you had always had.
Yeah.
And you're already in the process of doing it, but I think, because we knew we had somewhat of a plan, and we were like, once we were kind of like settled down and once we kind of check off these boxes, like, then we'll be ready. And we got to that point, and then it really just became like, that's where I feel like our lives really kind of changed. And so the reason why I bring that up is because, I mentioned the question like, oh, how did things change after the wedding? And I almost feel like, not much changes after the wedding, but really a lot of things change in your life, after you have a child and, after you like start a family together. And it's like something that's so awesome to be able to look forward to. Definitely, when you're ready for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not. I mean,
You're ready.
if it's not for you, it's not for you. I will say though, if children were not in our future, if we had chosen not to, like I would say finding stuff you can do, like you said, like maybe you would travel, maybe we would have just traveled more, and just
Or even
did
if you're
some
just
other
like waiting,
things.
like
Yeah.
until like you feel like you've done the things that you want to do.
I think like
I agree.
I will say that the like having, and I feel like any parent would say this, like having a child. It's kind of like the pandemic where it was like you didn't see that person in that role kind of thing or in that like environment. And it's the same thing. It's like, obviously you were never a dad. So now you're learning to be a dad. I'm learning to be a mom. And like, so there's a lot when you're learning a new skill, when you're learning to be somebody new, like there's a lot of hiccups in that too. There's a lot of like, things that you go through, growing pains that we went through individually. So that's where I feel like, it's just like when you're like, what's changed in 6 years? Like, that's just where I'm going to go to because my entire identity changed when, like when you get married and it's like, okay, like you said, like, oh, now we're calling each other husband and wife. Like that was different, but it wasn't like who I was as a person fundamentally didn't change. And having a child definitely changed a lot of who I am.
It goes back to something I had mentioned like earlier in the conversation about like how much you change, just as life progresses and as you go through all the chapters and stages of marriage and I think you can't always necessarily predict how things are going to go or the people that you'll become, but just know that things will change and like that's okay. But the one thing that's good to do is like to just like kind of recognize and acknowledge it and still make sure that you're not letting things just kind of get away from you and all your focus isn't going into like just your career, just your your child and raising a family, but also to just remembering that your partner is there as well and all those things that you did before you got married, the going on dates and all that stuff, like you have to do your best to try to continue that because it is really important. And it's so easy to get lost in life and things are happening, but I think if you just continue to like, think about the relationship that you have with your spouse, with your partner, I think is like really important because it doesn't necessarily get easier or harder. Like I said, it just changes and you have to kind of like really recognize like, oh, things are a little bit different and sometimes that means that you need outside help. Like you don't get married by yourself. Like most of the time you have a support system, you have people around you, and
I think you have a whole wedding party when you get married, like,
and it's really nice to have people that are a lot of times they're going through the same stages as you. So when we were planning our wedding and when we got married, there was our friends were going through the same thing. And then it's like, then they're having kids and we're having kids and you're going through a lot of similar things. But, but even if that means talking to like somebody like a marriage counselor at some point, I thought about it as like, it doesn't always necessarily mean that, you're having trouble in your relationship, but it could just be that you're looking for like some guidance on how to navigate those changes. And like, to me, that's just as important. And, you shouldn't wait until like, like things are so different. And, if that is something that you feel like is helpful, like you have people to talk to, about like, whether it might just be like, an older couple in your family, they've been married for a long time and you're like, how'd you guys do it? Those are all those things that you probably don't, consider. You're like, oh, you're in the honeymoon phase and everything's just kind of come so easy. But it doesn't always look like that. And it's not always like the honeymoon phase. And that's just kind of like life and having realistic like expectations, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big advocate for counseling therapy. I mean, I've my master's degree, that's what, the foundation was for it. And I've had counselors throughout my life, from elementary school through, individually. So I definitely agree. I think it's good to have two people are coming from very different backgrounds typically, very different home lives, good and bad, right? Like I think every household has it's really good times and it's really bad times, or bad moments. And so you have to recognize that you carry your experiences with you. And so, when you bring two people together and they're living together and forming a life together, you're blending those things together, the parts of ourselves together, the good and the bad. And so, and I know for us, we're very different people. And I know a lot of our couple friends too, say the same, oh, you're we always joke around, Brendan's always you and Nicole are always worried about the house being clean and the dishes being done. And and then you and him are I'll get to them when I get to them, kind of thing. And it's stuff like that where it's just, priorities and the way we look at every aspect of life. And so I love therapy. I love having a mediator. It's good for me to have a third party perspective, for someone to test my thought process and my thought patterns and my emotional behaviors. And so I recommend it. I think there's not a single person on whether you're just dating or been married for 40, 50 years who wouldn't say we've had challenging times. And so you're going to go through challenging times. That is a natural human experience. And so to have a little extra help in mediating that experience or any experience that you're having, becoming parents to me was just a huge shift in both of, I've said, both of our identities. And so
these are all things that you've never done before, for the most part.
Right.
Most people they've never gotten married before. So it's just how could you know everything that you should expect in a marriage if you've never had a kid before? How could you know all the things that go into being a parent? And I think that's where it helps to have some support and some guidance from people who are just they have gone through it, or they're experienced enough in dealing with these things that they can help you out whatever stage you're at, because it's not there's anything new under the sun. It's most of the time these things that you're just learning to grow together. And I think that's the main focus that couples could keep, it is just make sure you're as you're growing, you're growing together, and you both feel you remember all the reasons why you decided to get married in the first place and stay together. And so I think that's just very important perspective to have. And for somebody who is if you're planning a wedding, you're getting married, and you're yeah, this is not not something I need to worry about, or we're good, and it's I think that's great. But if anything ever changes, it's good to just know it's okay, and everybody kind of goes through these different phases and stages, and I think it's important to just learn how to grow together. Really, it's the important part.
Yeah, I think no relationship is perfect, and I think I mean I'm lucky enough that you are open to having a therapist or having counseling, whatever you want to call it. I would just say definitely listen to your partner and be open to, even because I know there's plenty of people who just would not. I mean, I've talked to women who are my husband would never do therapy, and it's
we're so different necessarily. We are from who we used to be. We have both changed a lot, but also we're very different from each other, even in the way that we communicate. And I've always kind of appreciated that, any differences that we have, we typically, there's not any, yelling or anything like that. It's, we find a way to communicate in a way that is, there's still
Respect.
kindness and that respect. But also too, sometimes it's just you're coming from different perspectives, and so to have that person that's like, oh, this is what they're trying to say,
Yes.
and you're like, oh, okay, like I'm starting to get it, because I think that is a thing that like
I love.
it's tough to
Yeah.
like really always like know, oh, I feel like we're always on the same page. Like sometimes we're not on the same page, and it's not for a lack of trying, but more or less of just, you know, the differences in
Interpreting.
perspectives, and
Yeah.
the ways that things are being interpreted, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, kind of like you're saying. And so yeah, to just have like that person that is like, you know,
Yeah.
looking to help out and give you a little bit of guidance and advice
Mm-hmm.
along the way is like, it's really huge, because this is the stuff that when we talk about, you know, planning a wedding, and these are the things that like most of your marriage is not the wedding. That's the one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
This, and that's honestly one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, because I feel like it's so worth it to talk about this part, the actual being married part.
Yeah.
And so
No, I definitely agree. And yeah, I think that I think that's where a lot goes wrong, is focusing on the wedding day and not who you both are as people, and who you are as a couple, and where that is going, and like having like similar visions for your future. And because even like when we met, I didn't want kids, right? So like, even, I mean, and now I'm like, I couldn't imagine not having my child, but our child. But because like, so plans can also change too. Like, I remember when I was in my master's program, one of the people that I work with, she was older. She had 2 kids, and I didn't even know you yet. And she said, I was just telling her like I didn't want kids. She's like, you'll meet somebody one day who will basically change your mind.
Yeah.
And she was definitely right, because she was like, I at one point in time felt the same way. And that's not to say that if you're somebody who doesn't want kids, your mind's gonna get changed one day. But I just say that to say, you know, who you are as a person can also change, and what you want can change.
Yeah.
And that can be really difficult in relationships too, because you can have somebody who, you know, wanted kids and now doesn't want kids, or wanted to travel and now doesn't want to travel, or
But even
wants to move and now doesn't. I don't know. It could be a
but
bunch of
even it
things.
might be hard to imagine having you know, or growing a family, starting a family with somebody without even knowing who that person is. I feel like when you meet the right person, I feel like it becomes a lot easier to imagine what a life with starting a family and all of that would look like. You know, if that's right for you. And but yeah, before you really meet that person, it's kind of hard to even imagine what that could look
Right.
like.
Yeah. And some people, so, listen, I know some of like the women I grew up with who just knew they wanted kids, and they were like, they knew that person would come around one day that they would be able to start a family with. But yeah, I think that it's so much more than just the wedding day. It's who you are as people and as a couple, and just knowing that you are going to grow and change. And it's kind of like, I saw a quote at one point that where somebody asked something online about asking somebody who had been married for a long time, like how they stayed married. And they basically were saying like, you have to keep falling in love with that person, because they're going to keep changing. And so like, that is really like that commitment of like, you know, for better, it's not even like for better, for worse, but whoever you become, or whoever, you know, obviously there are certain situations where like, you know, it might be wise to remove yourself, but you know, we're all going through life and taking what we've learned and then trying to make the best decision next. And we just keep doing that over and over and over again. And so even if we didn't have kids, and like that, where that was like such a big change, we would have still changed. We would have still kept growing, and we would have still kept just having new ambitions or new goals for ourselves. And like, that's going to take you in a different direction. And so, just learning to keep moving with that person together. And yeah, knowing that the wedding was really hopefully a blip in the long time you have together. So the weight it carries, and that's why I say it's very performative, because it really is like there's so much weight behind it, planning for it and the day of, and just it's huge. It's very significant, very meaningful, very impactful, but it's also just such a small.
It's one day out of.
Oh my God,
if
how
you're
many days? What
planning
was
on
the thing
being
I just gave
married-
you for 6 years? How many days was it?
Oh my gosh, I
don't even remember
how many days,
but it's so many
it's a lot.
days, yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one out of like, you know, what will end up being, you know, a million days or however much, and so it's important to definitely focus on, you know, really having a celebration, because that is really, to me, like what a wedding is the celebration of the love that you have for each other. And the reason why it's so important to still have a wedding, I think, is whatever that looks like for everybody, but is because I feel like there are so few times in your life where all the people that you love are in the same room together. This is like the only time that happens, and it's worth like putting some significance on, but also just keeping in mind that like the whole marriage isn't just one day.
Yeah.
It's one day at a time.
I definitely think you should celebrate and do what feels good for you. And I think just not feeling pressured to do more than that. Because we were lucky where we didn't have people telling us what to do, right? Where like there are families that, you know, they have more pressure. So I just hopefully, you know, people will be able to do what they want, you know. But I think, yeah, make the day special. I can't recommend video enough. Like we watch our video, so we did a microfilm.
I try to
so
tell
it was like
try to tell people
we
this,
did a microfilm. That's what Tim does. If you're looking for somebody to do video,
which
too.
is just a 4 or 5 minute
Yep.
wedding highlight recap of the entire day.
It's the best because we can
And
literally watch it every single year.
we watched it twice.
We watched
this
it twice
morning.
because Lily has to watch it again.
Yeah.
The Mommy and Daddy movie. And I think ours is like 3.5 minutes or just under,
No, I
just
think
shy
it's
of
like
4.
I think it's like 5 minutes.
Is it 5 minutes?
Yeah,
Doesn't
but it's like,
Yeah.
I think that's what I love about it, is like it is
Get it.
short
Do
enough.
it. It's worth the money.
Yeah.
We watched that video. I actually was just looking back at our pictures, which I do love too. But the video, there's a different feeling when you watch the video. You just think well, I cry for most things, but I pretty much cry every time I watch it. And it's just like you're back there.
Yeah.
You're back in that time. And like the 3 to 5 minutes is like, it's a perfect amount of time to recap that
It's enough
day.
time to fit everything into just that one film, but short enough for you to watch it over and over again.
Yeah, we watch it every year.
and,
Even I remember us when we went on the honeymoon in Mexico, watching it there too. Like so, it's on like Vimeo or whatever, right? And so it's like you can just pull it up if you yeah. It's just very.
That was the one of the things that I was going to say, is that I couldn't imagine if we did all of that and didn't have it documented, and to have like Logan there, Leron there to help us document the day was just as important as like putting it all together. Because if we had put it all together and then not had anything to like relive it and look back on it, we would have just been like, you would have tried holding on to it just like, you know, from your memory. And it's like this, it's such an obvious reason as to why, you know, photography is like an absolute must, but video as well is just one of those things that is really worth considering, because it's like, I thought about this morning. I was like, whatever we paid for video, I would never wish that we had that money back.
No, it wasn't
and
even.
never had a video.
No.
I would feel like sad that we didn't have any video, or that like, oh, like I wonder what that would have been.
Yeah.
But there's no regrets around like whatever it costs to just have that moment be captured in a way that is more unique and adds to the gallery of photos that we also like get to enjoy. So
Yeah, and I feel like I noticed something. Like I was thinking today watching it, like I was like, oh, like I just noticed new things in the video. Yeah, and like you it's just like you kind of just you're really able to be sucked back into that that place, that moment, that day. And
all
it
the-
feels like yesterday when I watch it. I'm like, wow,
really
yeah,
does.
that doesn't feel like that was 6 years ago. That really feels like it was, very recent. And so, and now it's also something that like, our toddler, like Lily's 3 and she can sit through, I mean, she's really great with sitting through stuff, but now she has that too. So like whenever, hopefully many, many, many years from now, we're gone, she still has that. She can see us. She can like hear us. I am so emotional.
You are. And no, I agree. It's a lot of times couples, when they're booking stuff like that, they're like, considering themselves,
Yeah.
and this is for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you don't think about like who else this stuff is for. And so things like, even we have like a wedding album, and that's really nice to have. And some people just kind of like,
And we leave ours out.
they're like, yeah.
And people will pick it up. Austin just picked it up.
my cousin.
Yeah.
And no, it
Yeah.
really is like, it's such a nice thing to, just like to have these things. And, it's not something that you utilize all the time.
No,
but
we
it's
literally
like,
watch it on
we
our wedding day
couldn't-
and our anniversary, and that's it.
we couldn't imagine not having them. And so,
No, but I do think too, like leaving out, like doing the wedding album and leaving it out, like on a coffee table. That's what we basically have it on at home. And like we'll have people. Aunt Sharon's always another person when she comes over. She tends to pick it up. Like people coming to visit will just be like, "Oh, hey, let me, look through, your pictures," and it's just nice. And we got the it's like the glass cover,
yeah,
so it
the,
really
like,
preserved
acrylic
the
cover.
picture too, because we have other albums that have just gotten whitewashed from like the sun.
Yeah.
But that really preserved that cover photo really well, and it's just nice to just leave it out, and people will just pick it up randomly too.
And where a wedding album is different from like, oh, well, I have a whole wedding gallery, like of the photos. So like, what do I, but the wedding album is curated in a way that it's like meant to just tell the whole story,
Of the day. Yeah.
and in like those set amount of photos.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what it does a really good job of. But yeah, so definitely a lot to like consider, but I mean, 6 years, like I said, it's just been like,
It's only beginning.
it's so
only the
crazy. It's so crazy, but yeah, I can't even believe that it's already been 6 years already. So now we have plans to go enjoy the day, do dinner later on, and all
At
that
our
fun stuff.
all-time favorite
So,
place. Where did we go? Always anniversaries, celebrations. Our spot is
Teak and
Teak
Red
and
Bank.
Red Bank.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And then hopefully we're gonna try. There's a new ice cream shop there. I just saw like the little line. It's like very famous on TikTok right now. Something Scoops. You're gonna love it though.
Right.
It's so up your alley. So hopefully we can get some ice cream there.
All right.
That'll be good.
Well, thanks so much for sitting down and taking the
welcome.
time out of your day to
This is all I've ever
come chat with
wanted.
me, to be on a podcast. I've been trying to get you to start a podcast for years, and you never.
No, I've been wanting to do a podcast with you, and you're like, because we are very private. You're like, no.
I think that's wise, because it's like, well, this is, I think, a really nice way to just kind of like share our story, because we're a little bit more reserved and conservative, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is hopefully helpful for people to kind of like get some insight into like, what our relationship is like, and just maybe learn from some of the things that lessons that we learned from. So thank you, love you very much,
Love you.
and let's go, I don't know, do something fun.
Get massages.
So-
That was next.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.